You're listening to the 2011 Japanese Grand Prix podcast on Formula1 FanCast. To keep up to date with the latest Formula 1 news, visit www.formula1fancast.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Formula1 FanCast. Well, it was pretty inevitable that Sebastian Vettel was going to be crowned world champion at Suzuka, only needing a point to take his second driver's title. Vettel finished the race third, Ferrari's Fernando Alonso put in a strong performance to finish second, but Jenson Button took the plaudits as the 2009 world champion drove a superb race to win an enthralling Japanese Grand Prix. And here with me to review the Grand Prix as always is Will Vincent. Eddie Jordan said a real quality Grand Prix, and that certainly was the case, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. First of all, congratulations to Sebastian Vettel, the youngest Formula 1 world champion, the youngest double Formula 1 world champion. I think if we carry on the way we're carrying on, we just need to rip the page out of the history book and start again. But great result by him. Really good race as well. Really good show for the crowd. And, overall, it was entertaining to watch as well. Japan always produces some good results, wet or dry, and today was no exception.
Well, from start to finish, it was an action-packed Grand Prix. We'll come on to talk about Jenson Button's fine win, but it was Sebastian Vettel who sparked all the headlines as German became the youngest ever double world champion in Formula 1 history. And despite Button and Alonso getting past him in a pit stop phase, Vettel was still able to finish third and get the point required for him to be crowned world champion. Will, it's been a season where Vettel has been totally dominant from the word go, and he thoroughly deserves his second driver's title.
Yeah, isn't it like his worst finish all season's been fourth?
Yes, that's right.
Only one of those was fourth. He's been on the podium every other race apart from that, and that amount of dominance I think we haven't seen since Schumacher had his ridiculous amount of podiums in a row. It's been a really good season for Vettel. Even when he's not winning, he's close enough to winning. He's made hardly any slip-ups all year. He's always been consistent. He's pretty much figured out how to win races the easy way, and that's qualify and pole, drive away from everyone else on the first two laps, and then cruise to the finish.
And Vettel joins an exclusive club where he's only the ninth driver to win back-to-back titles, and throughout the year he has been consistent, and consistency is the key to winning any championship.
Well, yeah, precisely. It doesn't matter how good your car is. You're not necessarily going to win a championship by having a fast car. If you look at the list of people he's joined, Mika Hakkinen, who had by far one of the most dominant cars in Formula 1 at the time, and a certain issue of Michael Schumacher breaking his leg, but he's a double world champion. You had Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher, the likes of Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost. Why they're so good and why they managed to win 2 championships in a row is because of the fact that they were able to put whole seasons together and minimise any mistakes that they made. And that's what Vettel's done. And he's done it probably better than most drivers have ever done it.
And winning the opening race in Australia, he certainly threw the gauntlet down to his rivals.
Well, yeah. And literally before the cars even turned up in Australia, it's a case of, hi, I'm Sebastian Vettel, I'm your 2010 world champion, I'm here to whip your backsides again.
Well, for Mark Webber, he didn't exactly have the best of Saturdays as he could only qualify 6th, but in the race he was able to come home in 4th and only 8 seconds behind race winner Button. How would you describe Webber's weekend?
Safety car helped, otherwise he would have been a little bit more than 8 seconds behind. But overall, it was a good result for him. Consistent, solid, pretty much all Webber could ask for, really. A nice, decent, solid result.
And that result saw him end the day only 3 points behind Button in the driver's standings, and that battle for second is likely to go down to the wire.
Yeah, and again, like everything else, it'll be who makes the least mistakes possible. And it'll be an interesting scenario as well, whether or not Red Bull are going to give up on the development, I won't say give up, but slow down the development of their car now they've won a world championship. Whether they're going to carry on with that development until they get the Constructors' Championship, which for many people, just ask people like Frank Williams, a Constructors' World Championships worth as much, if not more, than Drivers' World Championship for a lot of people, because it helps everyone from the guy who makes a T all the way through to the guy who makes all the magical parts that find speed. It'll be an interesting inter-championship. Let's not forget the likes of Alonso in there as well, who is the master of sneaking up at the last minute in the championship and managing to find everything that he needs to do what he needs to do.
And again, congratulations to Sebastian Vettel on winning his second driver's title. But let's not forget Jenson Button put in a stunning drive to take race victory at Suzuka. You could argue the pivotal moment of the race came when Button was able to get past Vettel in the second round of pit stops. And despite the safety car coming out, Jenson was able to manage the gap between himself and the chasing pack to take the checkered flag. Will, a brilliant drive from Jenson.
It was a brilliant drive for Jenson, and it makes me laugh. First, NASCAR's first one to throw debris cautions, then IndyCar started doing it last week, and now Formula 1's doing debris cautions. As far as I could see, they picked up that debris and they moved along. So why they needed to throw a safety car for that, I have no idea. I don't think anyone knows why there was a safety car caution. It was a good result for Button. This safety car hindered him more than it would have helped him, to be fair. But he still managed to get the job done and get the job done well. And this is what the key with Button is like that conservative aggression and his ability to think and strategise in that car and manage your tyres is second probably to only Alain Prost. He's the best in Formula 1 of managing what he has for a race to get the best result out of it. And his aggression, he needs to be aggressive, he's awesome at watching him overtaking. When he needs to just, manage his tyres and drive sensibly, he's the best at doing that as well.
And you'd have to say, at the minute, Button is stamping down his authority as McLaren's number one driver.
If he's not already cemented that himself already. I remember when Button joined that team, Eddie Jordan said it on commentary that everyone's thinking, what are you doing? You're going to ruin your career. And let's not forget, Button's a bit of an old-timer now. He's been in Formula 1, 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
10 years. So, yeah, even though he joined as a really young guy at Williams, I mean, he's been around the block a few times now. And, for example, Webber has had a shorter career and everyone's talking about him retiring and they're not talking about Button retiring. So it shows how good a driver Button is, but it's also showing how Button needs to make an impact now, because he's 5 years maximum I'd give him left in Formula 1, not because of the fact he's a bad driver, because of the fact that he'll get to an age where, you'd have to consider hanging up his boots.
Well, in March this year, Japan was hit by the devastation of a massive earthquake and tsunami which killed approximately 16,000 people. And we know Jenson regards Japan as his second race, having been with Honda. And we saw after the race how much that win meant for Jenson and for his girlfriend as well.
And for Mr. Senior Button as well, by the look of it on TV. I mean, he was holding back a few tears. But I think this win for Button, in all honesty, will probably go down as one of his best of the season. Probably will go down as his best of the season. And deep down, I think he's glad that he's managed to win this race. There's always those times, like they say that a home crowd can be worth 3/10 at times. And I think that's what was here for Button at Suzuka, because that McLaren wasn't as good as the Red Bull. The qualifying times showed that Red Bull was technically still fast, and you know what, I think they were. But Button had the heart this weekend to win the race, and he did a great job at it. And I have to say, for Formula 1 drivers, that the fact they didn't make all of that rubbish about, we're going to get radiation poisoning and die if we go to race in Japan, like the MotoGP drivers did, well done on them for actually, just manning up and going to a racetrack and doing what they do best.
But for Lewis Hamilton, it would have been a case of what if, after the Brit could only manage a 5th place finish on Sunday. Lewis had qualified 3rd and was able to get past his teammate on the opening lap, but after suffering a puncture in another collision with Ferrari's Felipe and Massa, Hamilton was only able to finish 5th. Another missed opportunity for Lewis to have been in contention for a race win.
Key word there is another. How many times have we said, Lewis Hamilton, what if this season? And it's getting boring now. Talking about how he could have got a 2nd place or could have got a race win or could have got this or the other. First of all, I think someone needs to go down to Ferrari and check to see they're not putting a magnet on a car of Lewis Hamilton and then put an opposite magnet on Massa. But I mean, these two really need to, sit down in the trailer, sort out their differences and get on with racing, because they're getting together too often. And at the end of the day, all they're doing is they're hurting themselves. And if they want to have a punch-up, let them have a punch-up. I don't care, I'll make good television. But at the same time, Hamilton needs to stop concentrating on his rivalries, get into his McLaren and drive. And not worry about the other 23 drivers on the grid. Just drive and then the results will come.
Well, there are 4 races to go, and I'm sure McLaren will be in contention to win some races. But I guess the end of the season can't come sooner enough for Lewis Hamilton, and you're hoping next season a fresh start and we'll see the best of Lewis Hamilton.
I think Lewis Hamilton wishes the season finished 4 races ago, let's be perfectly honest. I think that Lewis needs to settle down, chill out for part of the season, drive in a simulator, learn how to overtake people again, because I think he's forgotten that, and then work his backside off helping to develop the new car, because without doing that, making that new McLaren fit like the most well-fitting glove in history, he's going to be in trouble. And Button already has a psychological advantage, and in my opinion, Button is currently the best driver in the team. I think you could go do a poll of most of the McLaren garage and they're probably thinking along the same lines. And once you get to that situation, that tiny little bit, that 5 minute extra work will go to Button's car and not to Hamilton's, and it'll be a slide downhill from there.
Well, we mentioned earlier that Vettel being consistent throughout the whole of 2011. If Lewis is going to become world champion next year, if he's going to be in contention, he's got to be consistent and he's got to stop making stupid mistakes. Yeah.
In any form of sport, the people who win, be it a team, a driver, or anything else, is always the ones who make less mistakes than anyone else. So for example, you could talk about soccer, and the team who keeps the most clean sheets or doesn't concede these silly goals or concede penalties always does the best. In motorsport, it's always the drivers who are consistent, don't get involved in wrecks, don't mess up entering pit lane or get themselves silly little black flags. Are always the drivers that will do the best and have the best chance of winning a championship. Which is why, even if you don't win as many races, if you can get more second, third and fourth places like Vettel has, for example, Vettel could have only won 1 race this year and he'll still be looking at being world champion right now.
Okay, well, moving on now. Fernando Alonso gave Jenson Button a late scare, and the Spaniard finished Sunday's race second ahead of Vettel. Well, another strong performance from Fernando, and he wasn't a million miles away from the pace of both McLaren and Red Bull.
Precisely, and everyone forgets that Fernando Alonso is the king of the end season. I think he scored more points, his percentage in the last 7 races of the season are probably higher than any other driver on the grid right now. He used to do it at Renault, he's done it at Ferrari. He just somehow manages to sneak up on everyone. It's like, hi, I'm Fernando Alonso. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm here to win races again. And he's great at doing it, so he will be very strong for the rest of the season. And he's got that drive as well. He always has something to prove. He always has a little critic to brush aside, and he's good at it. And if I don't see Fernando on the top step of the podium by Abu Dhabi, something's gone wrong.
I know you mentioned this in earlier podcasts, but whenever he's not been able to compete for race wins, Fernando's always been able to bring the car home and score strong points. That's something Lewis Hamilton should take note of.
Yeah. I mean, as much as Hamilton hates Alonso, Hamilton could learn a lot from Alonso. And Alonso is a very, very well-rounded driver. And you know what, there was a point when I think a lot of people lost respect for Alonso, but ever since he's been at Ferrari, he's stopped getting involved in all of this moaning and politics. He just gets in the car on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday and drives the wheels off it. And if he gets a win out of it, well done. If he doesn't get a win out of it, he'll still drive the wheels off it, but he'll do it in such a way that he can bring the car home in second, third or fourth or fifth. And that's what makes him such a good driver. His consistency is amazing.
He won a career last year. Can he do it this year?
I wouldn't say no to it. I wouldn't say no to him winning possibly 2 races before the end of the season. And that's honest opinion there.
Okay, well, Alonso's teammate Felipe Massa finished 7th. The Brazilian again was involved in an incident with Lewis Hamilton, and right now, Will, Felipe is not a happy bunny, and if he continues to remain the number 2 at Ferrari, he's going to become even more frustrated and unhappy with the way things are panning out at the minute.
To be honest, Massa's always been the number 2 at Ferrari, and everything he's tried to do, you can beat Alonso 1 or 2 races, but Alonso will come back and he will beat you in the long run. Massa's biggest issue at the minute is he's got Hamilton in his head the same way Hamilton's got Massa in his head, and the two just need to forget about the fact that they crashed into each other 15,000 times this season and just move on and just race, because they don't seem to have any issues around the other 22 drivers on the grid. I mean, you don't see them crashing into the likes of Di Resta or Kobayashi every 13 seconds, so why Are these two crashing into each other all the time? What is so different between these two as everyone else?
Well, Massa does have a contract with the team next season, but can you actually see him leaving at the end of the season rather than seeing out his contract? But then again, another question that would pop up would be, if Felipe was to leave, where would he go?
Out of Formula 1. Simple as that. I can't see Felipe in another team because he's been at Ferrari for so long. I mean, this is the issue of Webber right here. Webber has been at Red Bull or Jaguar as it was for so long now that he can't go to another team because he spent too much time there. He's never really going to get a decent shot elsewhere, especially when you've got the likes of up-and-coming drivers, you know, like Al-Khashwari or Kobayashi or Petrov or Senna or, you know, even going down to the likes of Ricciardo. I would, as a team owner, take one of them over Massa any day unless my name was Peter Sauber.
So, do you think Sergio Perez could be someone who Ferrari could be looking at?
I think there's a contract already waiting to be signed. It's just a case of when am I allowed to sign it rather than if I'm allowed to sign it.
Okay. Well, former Ferrari driver and the old stick, Michael Schumacher, put in another solid drive to finish 6th for Mercedes, with teammate Nico Rosberg finishing 10th. And you have to say, since Canada, Schumacher's turned his season round.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's be honest. This is a track that Schumacher loves. I still remember when he hit the steering wheel so hard after he won his World Championship that he actually bent it. He is amazing to watch at this track. It's his kind of track, you know. He's very line dependent, very drive dependent. You know, his setup can only get you so far here. He's doing what Alonso and Button's doing essentially. He's just producing good, solid results. He spent the first half of the season crashing into everyone, and then he got a phone call from Ross Brawn saying, "Hi, you've wrecked us. You've cost us quite a bit of money with all these broken front wings. Can you take it a little bit easy for the rest of the season?" And he's listened to that phone call and he's just got on with the job.
And this is a massive if, but if Mercedes have a strong car from the beginning of next season, Michael could be someone to look out for.
Michael will not retire until he's won another race. And Michael Schumacher will get everyone motivated so much that they will win a race before he goes. Even if Michael Schumacher's not the lead driver, having Michael Schumacher in a team is worth 0.2 of a second because of his meticulousness when it comes to setting up a car or knowing what works, knowing what doesn't, all the way down to, you know, the morale he inspires into other team members. You know, I'm working for the same team as Michael Schumacher. It motivates people to do well. Just his presence and the fact that he demands so much forces people to do so well. So Mercedes, they're going to get their stuff together for next season. You know, you've got the likes of Ross Brawn there, you know, a very, very, very savvy thinker. You've got Schumacher, you've got the young talent of Nico Rosberg, who is currently still, in my opinion, the joker of the Formula 1 pack at the minute. You never know when he's going to strike. And Mercedes have got one of the most solid, stable lineups in the grid right now because, you know, the only way for them is up, but they've got two drivers that can produce the results.
Well, good recovery from Nico as well, after starting the race 23rd and coming home in 10th. And Mercedes have also added Jeff Willis and Aldo Costa to their team
Precisely.
as well.
I mean, Aldo Costa from Ferrari. I mean, it's starting to get to the point where Schumacher's like, "Hi, do you remember me? We used to win world championships together. Do you fancy doing that again? Just running circles around people." Jeff Willis is also, you know, one of the greats of Formula 1 when it comes to back of house stuff. And you know, the only person they could probably buy to make the car any better is Adrian Newey. Apart from that, they pretty much got the framework around him now to go.
Okay. Home favourite Sauber's Kamui Kobayashi gave the home crowd something to cheer about after qualifying 7th, but after getting off to a poor start in the race, the Japanese driver could only finish 13th for Will. In the end, a disappointing result for Kamui, but no doubt he's a fantastic ambassador for Japan.
Yeah, and that's even before we start talking about all of the great work he's done. You know, for example, bringing that choir down to sing the anthem before the race out of his own pocket. I mean, as I said about sometimes how being at your home track's worth 0.3 of a second, Damon Hill was probably the best example of this. Being at your home track can also cost you 0.3 of a second a lap if the pressure gets too much for you. And I think that it wasn't the pressure, it was the emotion that drove Kobayashi so well in qualifying, but hurt him in the race, I think. But it was a good result from it. It was a good drive. I mean, if it was any other race, we'd have just said it was a nice, solid drive from Kobayashi. It was just the fact he qualified so well, and it was his home crowd that it became anything of an issue. So it was just a good race from him, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, from one half of the Sauber garage to the other, Sergio Perez made his way up the field from 17th to finish the race 8th. A great job from Perez. And this year, so far, it's been a good year for the rookies, especially for Paul Di Resta and Sergio Perez.
Well, yeah, Perez, as I said, he's got Ferrari written all over him. He's a great driver. It's so nice to have the likes of Perez in Formula 1, getting such an international feel back into the sport. I mean, at one point, it was... To be a Formula 1 driver, you had to be French, German, Italian, Spanish or English. No one else was allowed. But now we're getting people from every single corner of the globe. And Perez has got such a great passion about... I mean, he will fit perfectly into a team like Ferrari just because of that heart and the soul he has inside him when he drives that car. And he's a great driver as well. I mean, you mentioned Paul Di Resta, he's had a corker of a season so far. I mean, you couldn't say anything bad about him. And, all of the rookies have done solid jobs. I mean, even down to, the new teams. When you consider how, there was a point when a rookie would be 4 seconds slower than his teammates. The rookies are at least at the same speed. Thereabouts as their teammates, all the way down to the HRT.
And you have to say Perez has never looked back since his horrific crash in Monaco.
Yeah. And you know what? I think some drivers, they always need that one huge crash to remind themselves that they are human. But after that's out of the way, I think a lot of these drivers expect that, are waiting for that first crash, and they get nervous and anxious because they haven't had it yet. But once it's come and gone, I think that's one of the few things you need to become a great Formula 1 driver.
Well, Renault's Vitaly Petrov finished the race 9th to pick up 2 crucial points, and Petrov really needed those points, didn't he?
Petrov needed those points, Renault needed those points. Let's not forget, coming into the season, 2 points could be worth $5 million. So all these middle teams are going to be fighting tooth and nail for position come the end of the season.
And it's going to be interesting to see what the lineup for Renault is next year. And if Petrov wants that seat, or wants a race seat with the team next year, he's going to have to put in some strong performances from now to the end of the season.
If I'm going to be honest, Petrov isn't racing for a Renault seat. He's racing for a race seat somewhere else. Because the amount of money that Bruno Senna is going to bring in is going to make him loved more than Petrov. And I think Bruno Senna has done a good solid job in the time he's been there, even though his results haven't been the best all the time. And I think also as well, if Kubica can race again, then Kubica is going to get one seat, Senna's going to get the other.
And just finally, looking ahead to the Korean Grand Prix, now that the Drivers' Championship's over, I suppose the main attention will be on the battle for second in the Drivers, and in the Constructors, the midfield battle between Renault, Force India, Sauber and Toro Rosso. Yeah, you're going to have some very exciting battles. At the front, you're going to have Ferrari and McLaren fighting it for the second place, and Red Bull mixing it up in there to secure the Constructors. And then down the grid, you're going to have other battles. You're going to have the likes of your Force Indias, your Mercedes, your Renaults, your Williamses and your Saubers all fighting for positions. And then you're going to have, at the back, you're going to have your squabble. Because, let's not forget, one of the bottom teams is going to get TV money. The other two aren't. And even if you get an 11th position, that could be all we need to do to get 10th place in the championship. You don't need to score a point, but you need to find a way of getting ahead of your rivals. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in to review the Japanese Grand Prix. You can visit www.formula1fancast.com to keep up to date with the latest Formula 1 news, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Formula 1 FanCast, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Baggies20. From me and Will, cheerio.
Bye-bye!